So Jim Harbaugh was asked about the new reporting on the scandal that has been bouncing around at the Michigan Wolverines, the champions of college football, and all the confetti and all that. And, well, you've got to get rid of all of it now. There's rumors that they're going to vacate. They're going to have to vacate the championship. There'll be a massive fine that will come down against the Michigan football program. So he was asked about all this. I think we have the audio on this, but when the news bouncing around, this is I think it's a level 1, they called it, level 1 punishment situation. So the NCAA's notice of allegations against the Michigan football program. Jim Harbaugh knows a thing or two about the Michigan football program. He addressed the situation to the media at Charger training camp, and did he apologize or not? Let's go to the audio tape. Take a listen.
Never lie, never cheat, never steal. I was raised with that lesson. If you stumble, you apologize, and you make it right. Today, I do not apologize.
No!
I did not participate, was not aware, nor complicit in those said allegations.
That's a good line, though. You never lie, never cheat, and if you do, you apologize, and I'm not apologizing. Go pound sand is what Jim Harbaugh essentially said. Let us discuss. This is what I want to talk to you about. The question, what do you suppose is behind Jim Harbaugh refusing to apologize over the Michigan scandal? So I've got Seinfeld, Matrix, and The Answer. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to jump over some hurdles and try to win a medal at the Parisian Olympics. That's what we're going to try to do. So to lead off here, I have long been an advocate that if you're a public figure, you should not apologize. And so Jim Harbaugh is following advice that I have given. Because if Jim Harbaugh had apologized for what happened at Michigan, it would not be strong enough. People would then bring up a bunch of other things. You should apologize for this. What about this? My stock portfolio went down this week because Wall Street went in the toilet. You should apologize for that. The whole thing, right? But Jim Harbaugh also is a very proud man. He's a quirky goofball of a man, but he believes that he did nothing out of sorts. I truly don't think that Jim Harbaugh is lying about this. I think that Harbaugh believes that there was nothing that was outrageous that happened at the Michigan football program. Or you could argue he's convinced himself that that is the case. Either way, that's the part of the book that Jim Harbaugh is in. And clearly a fan back in the day, his salad days when he was playing in the NFL in the 90s, fan of Jerry Seinfeld's TV show. And he's using a version of the Costanza defense, which is obviously refers to a classic episode of that show, Long Lost Show. And George Costanza on the show was confronted by his boss. He was sleeping with the cleaning lady, if I remember in the episode there, and right on the desk in the office. And he said, was that wrong? Something like, was that wrong? Were you not supposed to do that here? And because I've worked at a lot of offices and people do it all the time and all that stuff, something like that. That was his line. And so that's what Jim Harbaugh's doing. It's like, listen, I'm not apologizing. And essentially it's like, hey, in my head, Harbaugh is like, well, this happens all over the place. It's not that big a deal. We didn't go bang, bang, like the ass, 1,000, 2 1,000 holes. We didn't do that. Now, furthermore, let's move on from that because there'll be more on that story today and as we go through the week. Now, where are you at on the backlash coming out of Kansas City? The back-to-back, belly-to-belly champions in the Chiefs' kingdom have handed their kicker, Harrison Butker, a massive, massive contract. In fact, the biggest contract for a kicker in the NFL. Wow, that's a lot of cash. So my reaction, and there's a lot of backlash. People have said he had made some comments speaking as the keynote speaker at a college several months back. The wokesters got very upset with what he had to say. They were very angry, but he gets this massive contract. So all of this, to me, is proof of the Matrix being the Matrix. Like, we kid around with this, but we're not kidding around. This is based in reality here, that you've got the social media world, which is the Matrix, and then you have this other parallel dimension, which is the real world, and people often confuse the Matrix with reality, which is what we're supposed to be living in. And the Matrix, which is social media, that's the fun zone, right? That's the midway. It's filled with mirrors, and it's got these weird objects in it. And it was a lot of outrage, a lot of faux outrage, the bots attacking and all that stuff, because most people don't get that worked up into a lather about things. People disagree. Even today, I still think, I maintain to this day, people disagree with each other politically, whatever, but it's blown out of proportion by the Matrix. Because most people I've met, and we've gone out and met people at different events throughout the years I've been here, and meeting people that consume Fox Sports Radio and just trying to get through life, right? They got bills to pay. They've got friends they want to hang out with, family they want to hang out with. They're just trying to survive. They're not sitting there futzing around on their phone, worried about everything. And so the people that are all upset about the Chiefs and how could they give this money to them, there were a mix of people. There was some outrage, but there were also a lot of people that were just involved in skullduggery. That's what they were involved in. So you've got the real world. Clearly the Chiefs did not have a pebble up their tuchus when it came to this guy. And you can say, well, they aligned politically. Fine, whatever. But it's not like they think he's going to affect the value of the product that they gave their kicker a record deal. I don't have any skin in the game. I don't. The NFL has long overlooked certain activities if you're good enough. All right? We talk about it all the time. I mean, there's a quote, Steve Keim, who famously was the executive in Arizona, didn't do a great job, so he's working here now. If he did a good job, he wouldn't be working here. But Steve Keim, a longtime NFL big shot, and he gave a line. I'm paraphrasing. I'll probably get it wrong. But Steve Keim was talking about the draft process and how the NFL operates. And he talked about if Hannibal Lecter could run a 4.4 at the combine, that the NFL world would come out and say, well, you know what? He's got a bit of an eating disorder, but man, can he run. And that's essentially what the NFL's always done, right? If you're going to hurt business, it's a problem. Like Colin Kaepernick actually they thought, affected the business. The ratings did go down a little bit. That was an issue. So he was sent to the Hoosgow and has not played. And they did even try to bring him back. They gave him opportunities that were never good enough for Kaepernick. But in this case, on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you will, here, or the opposite wing, it's like, well, they gave him the money. He's been on a couple of Super Bowl teams now. It's like, apparently the talent pool at kicker's not that great, and so they gave him the money. They trust him that he's going to make the kick, and they gave him the money. But the NFL's always paid guys, in comparison to some actual crimes that were committed, this small potatoes, right? Small potatoes. All right, last thing here. Let's go to Dallas, the obligatory mention for the Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? So how much stock do you put into the glowing reports out of Cowboy training camp in the Oxnard, that Micah Parsons has dominated the offensive line? There's a domination situation for Micah Parsons last couple of practices there for the Cowboys. So I'm going to answer this by saying likely true, but irrelevant. Like, the amount of stock would be 0.00%. That would be the amount of stock. Like, we don't doubt that Micah Parsons is having some success, that he's playing like a cyborg in camp, that he's built differently. Congratulations. Nevertheless, though, my answer is the answer. Like Allen Iverson, we in here talking about practice, not a game. We're talking about practice. And the conversation about the Cowboys is always the same. It's Dak Prescott at quarterback lighting up opposing defenses during the regular season. Then Dak Prescott against a halfway decent defense, normally slipping up. And then in the playoffs, he literally is in the cockpit of the Vomit Comet. And Micah Parsons has much of that in his body of work also. He hasn't had as long a run as Dak Prescott, but you look at his brief time in Dallas, and I look around, and I'm like, well, Micah Parsons, yeah. He was the Week 2 MVP. Remember last year, I think the Cowboys opened up with the combination of the Jets and the Giants and got off to a great start. Everyone was all excited. MVP, greatest defensive player since Lawrence Taylor, and then they had to play the rest of the schedule. And by the time the playoffs came around, Micah Parsons was more worried about where his next podcast was going to be rather than succeeding for the Cowboys on the field. So he had a great training camp practice. Whee! How exciting is that?